welcome to Ancient Pathways. I was thinking about calling the series like Hold That Thoth. I don't know. I haven't seen a series out there called that yet, so maybe I'm good on that. Do you
Yeah.
do you feel like a musician? Like that was a full musician, like get a solid take and then whoops, start from the top, or just don't prefer to not talk about it.
About what? The one that disappeared?
The evaporation session.
Yeah, I say just take it from the top, man.
Heck yeah, no, well, I was gonna say I remembered a bunch of the things from before, and I for sure feel like maybe experiential, uh, hands-on might be the good kickoff point. I don't like I for sure took took my understanding to a new level, like trying to get my head around when I was first introduced to what you did for your work, and
Hmm.
so which was super helpful in terms of what I'm putting together in terms of like the laser stuff. But I'm I feel like maybe superposition time crystal slash structured water might be a good kickoff. But I leave it up to you if not.
Yeah, I mean, it's ironically, or sort of strangely, I should say, with all those different ideas, they all do sort of meet in certain ways through the work that I do with hands-on and cranial psychotherapy and using the Theraphly and other things in a holistic wellness capacity or healing capacity. Um, because it does. When you get down to the brass tacks of physiology, and we talked about this last time, so I'm happy to bring it back up. This idea of sort of quantum physiology and how you know we can look at it from a technological perspective, but we can also look at it from a real sort of holistic, shamanic, if you will, perspective. And a lot of people who work in the field of sort of hands-on therapy and other modalities that are a little closer to how we used to treat people than Western medicine um, tend to have a lot more openness to what has long been thought to be woo, but is really sort of just a real more core truth to how we function. Energy and subtle energies and scalar waves. Now everybody's, it's the big rage. Um, and all that stuff sort of comes together into a realization in my mind anyway, that how it all works together and how we as an organic system can manifest the same things that we're trying to search for with technology. People are talking about med beds and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, there's certain properties of external stimulation and chemicals even that is useful to help your body do what it needs to do. But at the end of the day, your body is the one that has to create the cells that it's replacing from the template that it has on hand. And so in terms of making like copies of copies, and anybody Gen Xer out there who made any cassette tapes, if you make copies of your copies, it degrades over time. And the process of keeping your original, sort of core copy of data or your information template is a quantum and even subquantum process. All of life really is, and it functions off of these principles. So what I came to realize through my work and other things is that, we are an extremely potent and powerful connecting force and organizing force for ourselves and others in the right circumstances. We can, because we function of the quantum realm, if you will, we can use our connection, concentrate it in certain places, in certain directions, with our intent, with our, you know, various levels of tools and modalities that come off of that are, neither here nor there. But it winds up, like I said, connecting back to that deep principle of how we really work and what, even going back further underneath sort of the physical, physiological stuff, we were talking about how energy and stuff can really relate to a lot of the paradigms we have around spirit and spirituality and aura and higher dimensional beings and how that would work. And so, not from a place of like necessarily dogmatic or attached to a specific mode of thinking. Not that there's any, I totally support how anybody goes with their path, but really putting a sort of, I hesitate to say scientific, but a more specific um, description of the process that we can observe and better understand and be a part of and operate both as a local individual manifesting stuff through your perception and your intention and that kind of thing, and mapping it out in a way that's more grounded in truth, that we can move forward and sort of build, rearrange society to reflect those ideals,
I don't, yeah, I would totally agree first. And second, I would say, like, I don't know, like, if there's a way that you could put in calculations, like, hey, both of us are full, there's a fully activated version of us at whatever, we'll say ninth density, and it exists in time space and it's there, but there's no calculations for it. Like, okay, I don't believe you then. Like, that's cool, but we're still in fully communication with it and open to whatever it's willing to work with us. Like, if you're not, that's fine. That's your way, your path. Like, fine, that works for you. I'm not judging you. Like,
Yeah, that's another thing we talked about last time too, was a big part of the process for people is the internal piece of allowing. It's like a lot of people get themselves they're exposed to something and they just immediately shut it down, even subconsciously, really. But especially when it comes to inner stuff, quantum information fields are unique to the observer. So like your observation of this conversation versus mine is similar in what was exchanged, but the perception is completely, inverted, if you will, or reflected maybe, and so that uniqueness winds up translating into a sort of singularity, and I hate that word, but into a single, thing that can't be replicated even if you were there. And so those information fields are really at the core of how we participate from the energetic side of things, that sort of leads through to the physical, that people then go, well, yeah, but I think that we've lost our idea of magic as being real. Like our ancestors had a much more holistic view and much more natural view, because they didn't have these distractions. They didn't have all this, magical technology. But ultimately, they studied just as hard and probably deeper than we do in regards to like life and energy and time and cycles and energy beings and, this kind of stuff. And now that we're at a space where we understand what we do, on sort of advanced edges of some of these sciences, you look back and you go, oh yeah, these guys knew actually exactly what they were doing. I mean, ayahuasca is a perfect example. No reason why somebody would take that plant, that root and that bark and boil it together in that way for it to work. It's like these are technologies that people pass down. And it becomes, life itself wants to just pervade, life finds a way.
well,
And
they fully acknowledge it too. I think that's part of the like the culture of it is like, oh, they went out and then we were out in the woods walking around and the plants spoke to us. Like,
mhm.
yeah, obviously they did. Like,
Yeah, I mean, all
what?
these things are really a representation of the way that, or a manifestation of the way that we interact consistently with not just physical stuff, but our higher energetic selves that are guiding and witnessing and observing from higher places, and where that, how that interaction happens too. And so this idea of, to drop back to the healing stuff, that the hands-on work that I've done, it leads to a place where you start to feel an understanding more than you sort of understand it, at least for me. And a lot of folks that I talk to, in the field also have that sort of sense. And so in that respect, it's like you're tapping into something like a deeper truth. And I think that's where at least I've been able to get a grasp of some of these very expansive ideas that have been kicking around, in some of our groups and chats and stuff. And so I think that aspect of things that we talked about last time, the allowing piece is huge, because again, this is all internal work. Like everybody wants to escape externally. They want to remote view and project themselves out to Jupiter. And so, hey, you can do that, but what you have to do is fold into yourself, understand your own internal mechanisms, and go that way, because your connection to the vacuum, to the field, is internal. So when you fall in to go out, then you start making progress.
Well,
At
I
least.
would totally agree with that first, and then second, I would say, I wanted to add, there's like the stigmata to magic added where people just kind of are like, oh, they think like friggin' pull a magic or pull a rabbit out of the hat versus like, oh, somebody's gonna. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I believe it's possible. Somebody's gonna make a gold brick out of their appear out of their hand or in thin air right in front of you. Like, fully believe it's possible. I haven't
Mhm.
seen it yet, but not the
Yeah,
same
but even
magic.
yeah, even some of the older like, like biblical stories, like changing a stick to a snake and the snake bites somebody and they die. I mean, these kind of things. like that's kind of even taking it a little further than I want. So maybe that's a bad analogy, but in terms of like adjusting the word magic, even because magic has a connotation of like impossible in this day and age, and making it just potential. You know, we have so much untapped potential and things that are going on that we don't understand fully yet, that we're starting to get glimpses of, that we can play with in ways that we've been playing with for a long time, but now we're enhancing with some of these techniques and tools like technology provides. But the sort of moral and principle base of it needs to be an internal organic thing first, in my opinion.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Versus the which again, I'm not judging anybody for the path that they choose to take for the beliefs that people have, but if you could meditate for 8 months and then see nature spirits, or get addicted to some chemical and put on an AI helmet in one day, like one experience might be comparable to the other, but like overall, like you were saying, information field wise, I think one is going to be a lot denser than the other. And never mind, I don't want to go into this the signal jacking path, but there's that too for sure.
Yeah. I mean, again, the duality of the universe just sort of dictates that all potentials are possible, good and bad. But I also take that to another level where if I step back sort of in that metaphysical sense, it's it's all kind of relative, you know. Like good and evil is very subjective on many levels. I don't say I'm not trying to claim that there's not like a legit sort of spectrum there with good behavior and evil behavior necessarily, but at the same time, it's like I just had some bacon on my sandwich today. Like that's evil to the pig, I'm sure, you know. But to me, it was like nonchalant. You know, does that make me evil? I don't know. You know, but subjective. You know.
That's true. Well, not it doesn't make me evil or make you evil to me, but probably to and hopefully I don't get banned for it, but or we don't like the vegan organizations or whatever. Probably, oh my god, bacon, that's crazy. Like it
Yeah,
is,
you
it's
know, and then,
subjective.
but then when the vegans and such, when they wake up to the fact that the plants have moments of consciousness, just like organic, you know, mammals and fish and whatever, you know, they're still signaling, they're still screaming out when you cut them down. Like it's just life, man. Like third dimensional, linear, entropic life. You know, it's not pretty in a lot of ways, and there's a reason for this system to be the way it is, and I think that again allows for all those possibilities to happen all at once, like those experiential moments that grow the quantum fields singularly and then collectively wind up testing it from all angles, you know, and all angles at all the time. So, you know, just like I said before, me and you are having a conversation, and it's going to be totally different quantum information fields. At the same time, it's also a way for the source field itself to witness this conversation from both angles at once. And so comparative analysis becomes, you know, a quantum thing of happening, you know, everywhere, all at once. So that
Yeah,
interconnectedness is a really, you know, powerful thing to recognize. And I think that's another aspect of where, um, you know, people underestimate this sort of woo thing. I mean, again, in the field of hands-on as a massage therapist, I'm surrounded by women. I have a lot of people who, you know, when I first started off, were like, "Oh, dude, I don't want your hands on me." And it was like, "Come on, man! Like, this is about therapy. This is about, you know, like you have a neck injury. Like, if you don't want me to work on you, that's cool, but like, I can help you." And enough people over time, and you build that sort of uh, confidence, I guess, that resonance field where it's like, no, like, calm down. Like, you just walk into a room, people know that you mean business, kind of thing. Um, but that's a collective resonance that we all have to sort of recognize. And even just on that local field of walking into the room with that person becomes an exchange that if you're aware of, you can model in a way that you want it to be. You know, you can create more of an opportunity for that to be a positive interaction on sort of your terms, quote unquote, or just even terms, I would say, you know, as opposed to letting somebody who walks in dictate and overrun, you know, your energy field and suck it out of you or whatever.
well, I was gonna say kind of that was one of the other points that I wanted to kind of recover was the openness and the biofield. If people are if willing to acknowledge that they have a biofield first versus like, "Oh, I'm not sure if this is gonna be the thing for me. If there's like a luminescence level on the bulbs that you could tell, or if the difference to openness, or like immediacy maybe to the effect possibly.
Well, with the Theraphly, yeah, I mean, hands-on as well. And I think of them as kind of similar. Like in a way, you realize that your mind and your hand become like the Theraphly itself. And that's another fun way to look at it. But yeah, when you turn on the plasma bulbs, there's a sort of max wattage that it gets to as far as brightness goes, illumination goes. And it fluctuates from person to person. And it really is interesting to see who that person is, what they're coming in for, where they're at with the ideas, of using the field and allowing it to work. Like I said, a lot of people have a resistance in their subtle abilities to sense, unless they have something really loud bothering them that turns down from like a 9 to a 4 or whatever, then they're usually like, well, it kind of works, but I'm not sure, And so if they come in for short bursts of stuff, if they need a lot of sort of the field action, you'll see the bulbs dim a little bit. And also sometimes when people who are just sort of, they're there because their husband or wife dragged them and they're like, yeah, try this thing because I'm sick of hearing you complain. And, this is the last straw, or, the next funky thing we're trying. And, we're relatively inexpensive for our session. So it's like, why not throw, $60 or whatever, Damon. So you'll see also changes in light illumination from the plasma bulbs. And again, the resistance or acceptance or allowance winds up making the bulbs react and respond because it needs more or less energy being taken up by the person in the field. There's more absorption, I guess, or less.
I would wonder if that goes to the expecting thing of like, if they're like going like, I don't know about this, I'm expecting like a miracle, like friggin' an angel to come down and slap me in the forehead, versus somebody that's like, hey, I don't know what's going to go on here, it could help, it could not.
Yeah, mentally, I do see that. And also physiologically, you can make a case for the fact that the more relaxed you are, the less in sort of fight or flight you are, the better, because we don't operate in our highest, in our proper like day-to-day settings of healing and repair and detox and all that kind of stuff when you're in a higher adrenaline state, a higher cortisol state. And so if you're in fight or flight consistently and you're in like adrenal fatigue or just chronically fatigued, then that sort of change is not going to be as potent as you want for a lot of people, and it takes switching to a more relaxed state for your body to then uptake and function more appropriately in the process of healing and repair and detox that needs to happen. And so, you can talk about it from a mental standpoint of certainly they need to allow it, but physiologically too, like, yeah, you need to relax and chill out. And if you're sitting there stressed and, constantly just thinking about, I had a girl who came in for a knee surgery that it's just healing slow for her. And she was expecting, big results. She had a sore knee. It wasn't even like she was maybe 4 out of 10 as far as pain goes. And after she was done, it was like a 2 out of 10. And I'm like, okay, well, hey, that's, it's better. She's like, well, yeah, but I don't know if it's really actually, that much better. And it's like, okay, like it's subjective. I can't argue with you. But if you give it another day or so, and I'll give you a call and we'll see how it feels, and if you have more range of motion, more mobility without pain or stiffness, then you're good, and call her in a couple of days and she's like, yeah, actually it does feel better in all those circumstances, but I'm still not sure. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel my next appointment. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine, but what you allow to happen in that circumstance, like mentally, she's like, okay, well, it's feeling better, but I'm not going to give that credit. Like, I don't know what to do with it. And neither do the bulbs, because it's like a resistance thing that, you know,
I wonder if there's a way that you could test the biofields for like maybe that like only the outside couple layers of the onion get the effect, and then it works in slowly but not all the way to the core.
it's working right to the core. You can actually test. There's new stuff that Konstantin Karakov is developing. I think the name is like the BioWell or something like that. But it's a way to use galvanic skin resistance, which is what they measure when you do like a polygraph, changes in the blood pressure and stuff from your skin. And they use that to measure a whole bunch of stuff. And it's very complicated software and it's tough to use. They're still sort of developing it. It's maybe a year or two old. I know a few practitioners who use them, but again, it becomes like, well, what are you measuring for, and how do you know the difference? And what are people coming in for and looking to get out of that? It's certainly a way to help give people a sense of like, okay, well, here's a before and after, so here's the outcome. But, again, it winds up being, okay, well, I don't know what any of this means for most people, that I've talked to.
Well, I would say immediately my first thought would be like you're around the field all the time, plus you do like Reiki and other practices. Like maybe your baseline, whatever 204, you go in, and like I go in and whatever, I like to stand in the stream and hug trees. Like I'm a whatever 290. Well, I
Sure.
don't know what direction is bad or whatever, but like,
Well, again, yeah,
oh my
exactly.
God,
We don't know
like
what direction's bad, and we don't even know necessarily what you're measuring to detect. As aside from nowadays, you can actually look at heart rate variability and craniosacral rhythm, what they call the Meyer wave. And there's a few other things you can talk about too in terms of vagus nerve, but mostly those two measurements of rhythm, electromagnetic rhythm and fluid rhythm, are dictating a lot of the cycles downstream. And so, like the craniosacral therapy that we do in the office is mostly about helping to reset those things, the heart rate variability, because that regulates a lot of your other neurology and so on and so forth, oxygenation, methylation. Um, but then you have, shit, just went out of my head. Where's I going with that?
the different I was gonna ask you if you do breath work on top of it too.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, a lot of times when you're working with people, they're just doing deep breaths anyway. But it's usually helpful. Sometimes if you feel stagnant, fascia or chi or whatever, and having holding that space and guiding somebody's breath can be a really powerful way, yeah, to connect them to restoring that rhythm or those rhythms and reconnecting. And so that's a big piece of I think how we operate from a quantum physiology standpoint is in those two spots specifically. And so that stuff winds up being a really important place that the Theraphly also works at. But again, you can't really quantify it in that respect.
That was the variance on the gauge readings, like the Theraphly versus chills out in the river, like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we gotta dial you back, you're crazy, and then meanwhile it makes me sick, and then like, oh, we gotta juice you up because you're around it all the time and you need more, and then meanwhile it makes you sick, like, oh, we got 260 is the number to be at. And they're like, no, it's not. Like, we're both probably kosher where we were at, but like, we just jacked our numbers because we didn't have sufficient data.
Yeah, exactly. There's been a long history now of the heart rate variability stuff, and the craniosacral stuff is more subjective because you follow it sort of with your hands more than you follow it with something technological, because it's a fluid pressure, so you can feel people sort of rolling in and out as they go through flexion and extension. Um, but yeah, restoring all those things is at the heart of what is possible with, or what you need to do. Let me put it this way: when it comes to either healing through frequency modalities or hands-on, or anything, medication-wise, even because you're effectively changing the biological rhythms of those inner clocks through however you're doing it, and making a more clean connection between all that stuff winds up being what we're all shooting for. And so whether you're doing it organically, technologically, or a bit of both, the underlying mechanisms there are something that people are going to grow to understand in the future as not being so woo and magical. And we're just going through the process now of really having these ideas become, within the next few months, years, you'll be like, people will be go, oh yeah, we knew about that, you know. But right now it's like, no, that I don't think things work that way. It's like, oh yeah, they do. Just wait.
Well, that kind of reminds me of the another point that structured water as like the base template for like max time crystal activations. Like I like, hey, it's really simple to do. All you need is marbles. Like try it for a week. Like drink structured water and see how you feel. Like,
Mhm.
oh wow, maybe it's psychosomatic, but holy crap, I feel way better. Like, yeah, most people do for some reason. Like I'm not telling you what to believe, but try it for a little longer, maybe. Like, oh, I've been drinking that 6 years now. That's great. Like, it's the best thing that I ever did. Like, of course I
Yeah,
know.
and
Oh,
even to
go
your point about like going outside and touching, grass and trees and stuff, it's the same thing. It's like you're doing very simple, but very powerful organic things, like recognizing the importance of the water in your body and the quality of the water in your body, taking it to a molecular level and saying, okay, well, there's parts of my body like my microtubules, my fascia, etc., that are all, water channels that create spaces where water can become what they call, what you were mentioning, structured water or easy water, exclusion zone water. Either way, you're talking about creating symmetrical patterns of the little kind of semi-twisted triangle or tetrahedron pyramid that water molecules are. And getting it all lined up, you can make these super symmetrical patterns that wind up being beautiful waveguides for quantum information fields to flow and exist and be memorized. Like that's why water has memory. The hydrogen pockets enfold information to the quantum field. So when you twist it in certain ways, it's like it becomes, very much an antenna, a connection. It's a gel-like. I've talked to Rossi about it too, where he agrees that it's almost like it's a sort of quasi-phase between liquid and plasma, and it operates in a way that's just, kind of crosses boundaries at room temperature, which is amazing, or body temperature, I should say.
Isn't it? I thought it was a base element for the universe, isn't it?
Hydrogen is the base element of the universe. So yeah,
I
yeah, a couple hydrogen and an
base.
oxygen get together in a certain pattern, and boom, you start building.
I think it's probably a little more pervasive than just on Earth, but personally, but
Probably, it's certainly a very important part for life. And so I think that just like looking at like Europa or something like that, where a moon has a super deep ocean, like there's a really good chance there's probably life going on in there, you know? And any other planet that has life has a really solid chance to be to allow for life to grow and flourish and have a connection with source. Like, I think that's a really important part of our sort of antenna, in our transceiver setup, Yeah.
that's yeah. The coral example always comes to mind for that one of like if they can broadcast to shed within whatever a microsecond of each other anywhere on the planet, then I would wager serious bucks that we probably have that same capacity for a bunch of things, like personally. But again, I wouldn't tell anybody what to believe. But that's always the one that comes to mind. It's the insta broadcast, and I'm not sure that they even really have like a nervous system per se. Like a do they? Like a maybe a little one in the middle. Like
Well, and that's the other part of life is that it comes in so many different varieties that it's like what we would consider a nervous system doesn't necessarily apply to something like coral or, bacteria or whatever, viruses. So it's like there is all kinds of, there's a full spectrum that life can inhabit and be enabled by to act as a local observer, if you will. And so water is a big part of being able to transduce quantum information signals that can then be used in any of those systems to enhance its ability to be consciously aware and be a vehicle for the source field to do its thing here, you know?
I I would totally concur. I have for when I try to futz around with stuff, I definitely have structured water in the vicinity for sure. It definitely makes the difference in my opinion also. And
Yeah, I mean, the way that sort of the signals need to be woven, like we have to think about this in a fluid pattern, so it's all waves. So you need waveguides. You need stuff that collapses it together in a way that doesn't mix the different streams, if you will. So constructively inbreeding or braiding, nesting those signals becomes something that the molecular structure of easy water especially is very good at doing efficiently. It has many ways that you can configure patterns of information to flow through it that become constructive so that they can be woven together or woven apart, so separated apart to then inform whatever it's going to downstream, And so the water in us and the quantum information signals become transduced into action downstream through the molecular lattice. And maintaining that is critical. So it's not just about like how much water you drink and stuff, but like you said, what's the state of your water? Is it near a high tension, tower that's spitting out some funky EMF? You keep your phone by it at night. Is it in a metal container? Is it in a plastic container? Like, there's a lot of things you can look at to then just simply start to adjust the quality of the water that you drink. Like I say, it could be as simple as marbles, Um, And so, yeah, there's a lot of fun to that stuff, and it's very important for the quantum physiology mechanics of action, mechanisms of action.
Have you ever used with your healing like structured water on the sides to see if it like would capture it a little better? Or?
Oh yeah, no, that's one of the main things that I do with the Theraphly is I always tell people to bring their water in with them. I do every time I'm in the office, I bring my water in, and I basically sort of drink just structured water these days. I may miss a couple of days here and there, but it makes a big difference. Yeah, you can taste the difference in terms of like the texture of the water, its softness. I can take my water from home, which is filtered and is pretty good. I get spring water, and then we vapor distill it. But when I take it down to the office, it just makes it softer. It makes it like rounder. It's just really cool. And well, most people who drink it notice, and they start bringing in a gallon of water or whatever. So I got a couple of clients where I'm schlepping their water back and forth to the car. That's a service we provide.
That's awesome though. No, I would definitely do that too for sure. Like I wonder if I mean almost all the drinks are water anyway, but I wonder if you brought like whatever in if it would like separate out the funk in it. Like you bring a Coke and then it's got like a chunk on the top.
Yeah, right. Just yeah, I haven't really explored much other than water, so that's a funny. Yeah, I've kind of wondered the same thing. I don't know if it'd really change it, but like in that way, it'd probably structure some of the stuff differently. Maybe you go flat. Who knows? But yeah, it'd be fun to play with. Maybe I'll take some Gatorade or something.
Oh,
Some
get yeah, maybe some not carbonated.
take
Yeah.
some moves and see what happens. Just smooth this out for me.
Have you tried tonguite or anything to bounce back off the walls or like a refractive dish or anything?
I have played around with quartz and shungite stuff in the field. I use the shungite off on. I have a little side table that has a Faraday bag you can throw your stuff in if you got your watch or whatever you need to take off from the Theraphly field into the bag, and I keep some shungite on that table just to make sure it's the field itself is actually separated from the bag and what's in the bag. So in that respect, that's sort of a just daily precaution. But playing around with the quartz and stuff, yeah, I mean you can make them work as you use with your lasers and stuff. You can refract the field, you can attract the field, you can draw it into certain places. I played around with it a little bit, but I just felt like beyond a certain point, I would rather just move the bulbs and focus the field itself where it needs to go than try and adjust the field in a way that I can't really see. You know what I mean? So I just kind of backed off on playing with that stuff with other people. I mean, I still mess around, with one of these days, maybe I'll get one of those phi crystals or Vogel crystals or something. But, for now, I've sort of stopped playing around with it. I just use the shungite for, the grounding and the protection for the bag and stuff.
It makes me wonder if you got like one of the Corona cams where you could see like the high tension or see the electricity, and then like I'm I I'm a sucker for rose quartz. If you put rose quartz on the in front of each of the tubes, if you hit them, if it would spread it more or if it would tighten it in, and then you get a. I have no
Yeah, and
idea.
it becomes a whole process too, because I've sort of worked through this a little bit in my head where it's like, okay, well, what's the quality of the refractive index of what you're putting in there? Is there any, something like a natural stone, you're looking at fissures and flaws in that thing. So what's that doing? And then what's the shape of the thing? Is it just a rock? Is it a pyramid? Is it a round, is it a sphere? Like, so all those things will also dictate what its field will then become or what it will do with the field. And so that's where I started to go, okay, well, yeah, let me just go ahead and sort of back off on this because, I had actually spoken to Mark in the SALT group, the bioarchitect guy. He had given me some advice on that, and it was really useful. But, I can't sit there with a compass over people like, okay, well, now I need to put this pyramid, north, directly north. Otherwise, I'll get some bad, negative green or whatever color comes out of this thing. And so, it's a level you can take it, but for right now, it's a bit much.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. If I'd be not me personally, but I'd be seeing where somebody would be like, if you're like, all right, we're cool, and like you're all good, and then like you like bust out the compass.
Mhm.
You're like, okay, 13 degrees. Oh, wait, that's off by a degree. Like, yeah, I gotta fix that. Like, what are you talking? Wait, what? What are you talking about? Like, no, no, you're still good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna move this over here just a little bit. Oops, sorry. You know, yeah, you don't really want to be adjusting things midstream. That's one of the beautiful things about the Theraphly and also their fire rate that they have now is that the frequencies themselves, you never have to adjust. It's the intensity of the signal itself. Like it's the intensity of the voltage that you're putting through there. And so understanding that is another important part about quantum physiology is that you don't need to dial between all of these weird frequencies that are, like a Rife machine would do, and then play one and then the other, because you recognize that your physiology is running across a harmonic scale. And if you're hitting certain notes on that scale together, it makes a constructive chord. It sounds good, right? The harmony of your body becomes recalibrated. And it works across all of your cells because it's working at that same sort of molecular bond level we were talking about with the water. Is that, that structure, those waveguides stay symmetrical because of the resonance in your field, and the more you get the resonance in your nervous system, the structured water, your heartbeat, the pericardium, all that stuff, then the better off you can regulate your systems from the inside. And that's what triggers healing. And that's what really runs your metabolism long term. So the health of that function is critical.
Plus, I agree first, and then plus I think they stack off each other too. Like, oh
Mm-hmm.
crap, like you're all these are good, but your heart rate is off by this. So like it actually every third circadian rhythm you're gonna sleep like crap because of it. Like what? How? Like just fix this. Like think your heart rate's good. You should sleep fine now. Like oh, I sleep fine now. What the hell? How'd you know? Like oh, dude, they're tied together, man. Or I'm trying to tell you, like you should be good for a little bit. Like oh, my heart's back now. I can't sleep every third night. Like oh, we got it, dude. Just we got to get that all lined up again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way that the fields are separate but yet flow into each other. They're all superposition, if you will, because there's individual fields around your organs or your chakras, however you want to look at it from an Eastern or Western perspective, that are, running the show from a subconscious standpoint, from a physical standpoint. And they need to be in agreement with each other at a certain core axis, which you could look at as both your vagus nerve and your spinal cord. Your cranial sacral rhythm is your spinal cord, your brain, the meninges around your brain, and all the soft tissue that wraps and sort of makes the connection between those areas, the water or the fluid, I should say, and the nerve itself through the myelin sheaths as they come out of the in between each vertebrae. So, that process is one to understand from a number of different ways, but the health of which is really addressing those areas is both a physical thing, but it's also a deeper energetic quantum thing that you're supporting. And that resonance field is the core thing that runs, it's the conductor of the rest of your orchestra. And bringing them all into harmony is, a lot of ways to get there. We've talked about the hands-on stuff. We've talked about the Theraphly, the fire rate, the nature, the breathing, the water, and sunshine. And that pretty much covers what you need to know, diet, exercise, that kind of stuff, and just personal joy and embodying that kind of thing. You have to put some of these things in a different category in terms of their priorities when you understand the system from that respect, because you understand that when they say you hold memories or trauma in your muscle. Well, yeah, that's a function of your nervous system, but it's also a function of the water in that area that's been holding on to it. And even though it's not the same water, the way that it's connected in your energetic field as much as your physical field is being represented and expressed in that area over time, repetitively, until it's resolved. So that energy will be there in the memory of a trauma to whatever degree until it sort of is examined, corrected, or resolved is probably a better way to put it, because you have to then go back and sort of play with it and experience it to go back to the time crystal thing. If you're storing information like a time crystal and all of a sudden you go back and poke the time crystal and turn it back on, it's going to repetitively show you the same information until you can figure out a way to resolve, rewrite, and reprogram that information. And that's the process of sort of the massage work in a lot of ways, the hands-on work. It's because you're bringing people's awareness back to an area of trauma that they're holding tension that they weren't necessarily aware of consciously, and allowing their body to, in their mind and their spirit, to reframe the resonance in that area to then soften or resolve or let go of whatever that trauma was, so that as you move forward with that time crystal still getting, sort of repetitively beating, it's got a different set of quantum information that it's working off of, so that you don't have the same response, you don't have the same sort of trauma connection with that area. It's a resolved thing. You still remember it, but it's not as shocking. It's not as moving emotionally or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, that would kind of speak. I agree. And first, again, and I would say it kind of speaks to like this the other metaphor of being open to it or not. Like if you're really resolved on like focusing on like, oh, Damon says it's a green light. You got green light here. The green time crystal's set. You're good for healing. And like, cool, it's a green light. Well, I'm not sure. I think it's red. It might be red. It's red. Oh my God, it's red. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's because you made it red. Like it was green. You were good. But if you're really hell bent on believing that it's not resolved yet, then you're gonna have that stored in the water slash memory still.
Yeah, and it gets into a deeper psyche question too, where it's like some people, a lot of people, depending on the trauma and how long it's been around for, start to identify with that trauma as a part of their identity. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, obviously they identify with it, so yeah, part of their
Or
identity. So,
that's part of their
so
character.
yeah, in a way, and and again, that's not a judgment call on anybody because it's how we all work. But you know, if you don't want to go back and face that thing, again, a lot of times it's just too much for some people. Some of the traumas are very painful, and you don't want to face it, and so you just kind of suppress it and don't deal with it. Fine, that's going to eventually come to back in a certain way anyway. But recognize that that information is coloring all of your decisions moving forward in that respect. And going back in and doing some of this work to reframe information moving forward is what people are resistant to do because a number of different reasons. One is too painful, two, they identify with it, three, they don't know what to do without it, and four, the usual, probably 4 through 10, the usual human, like, I don't know if I trust this guy, I don't know if this thing is working, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like the real brass tack stuff that holds people back. This is too expensive. Do I have to come here forever? Am I gonna have to keep doing this until you're rich or I'm broke? And it just becomes those natural human 3D physical problems that we all deal with.
The list of second guessing that it's definitely already working.
Yeah.
Like, hey, it could be 3 sessions, it could be 1 session. I don't know, but it's up to you. Like, if you say it's not going to work for sure, it's not going to work. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I've had that conversation with a few people who were like really reluctant to, like I said, if somebody, one person in particular just comes coming to mind, a couple, the wife was trying to drag the husband in for whatever reason, I can't really remember, but he was just like, nope, I don't think I'm into this. He kind of saw the room and was like, no, no, that looks weird, because I'll take people in and I'll introduce them to the Theraphly, I'll turn it on, and I'll do the thing where you take the fluorescent light bulb and put it in between the bulbs and it lights up to show people, demonstrate what a plasma field will look like. Like there's actually something going on here. You're not just laying in between two light bulbs and I'm ripping you off, you know. But he just was like, no. And I said, you know what? That's totally fine. Like if you don't want to, it's not a big deal. You guys can go ahead and take off if you want. It's not a big deal. I won't even charge you. Like, fine. Because what am I going to do? I strap him to the table and say, no, you need to do this. Your wife wants you to do this. He's just going to lay there and be like, this is dumb.
I
And
wonder, and I wonder how much of, and I'm not knocking the medical system, but I wonder how much of the medical system would take that, just be like, all right, well, you're cutting a check for us, so get on the table there.
yeah, oh, most of them. I mean, I that was just a one-off thing. I mean, I do charge people who like show up or don't show up. You know what I mean? Like, I do have some of those policies, obviously, but that's just sheer business stuff. Like, I don't always enforce it. So in that
Right.
circumstance, it's like,
Yeah, I
nah.
guess I would go for any business really. Like you showed up, you're already in the roller coaster, like cha-ching. Like,
Yeah, the only time
no.
I've ever held people to it is when they have an appointment they don't show for. And if they didn't call me, even like that day, I'll be flexible. But if you didn't call me, like, nah, you get charged. You know, um, that's just
That's
business.
fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's just business. You can't waste people's time. But yeah, they came in. She had a legit concern. I'm like, okay, fine. Just like with my hands-on stuff. Like if somebody came in and they were like, "Oh, I didn't know you would do it," which hasn't happened in I've been doing it 20 years now, so that's probably my first 2 years of practice. So people are like, "Oh, you're a dude." I'm like, whatever. And But if, again, even back then when that stuff would happen, it's like, I'm not going to force you to get on my table, you know? Like it just doesn't work that way. Like you're not going to get anything out of it. I'm not going to get, I may get a couple bucks out of it, but like that's super uncomfortable for me too. So like, nah, I'm good.
Like the only thing that I can guarantee is that if you're saying it's not going to work, then that door is for sure closed in advance. Like I don't know, it's not even worth it.
Yeah, how's that saying go? Like if you believe a thing or don't believe a thing, you're right.
That's a good saying.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but they were smart.
I I might have heard of them. There's around when I was going to the circus still, so maybe the 80s. It's been around I don't want to date myself, but I have white hair, so I guess it's cool. The only other thing that I definitely wanted to ask about pertinently was the I don't know how you feel on the 24 activated strands of DNA.
It's been interesting because this question's come up a few times recently, and my take on it is that it's really more about information capacity potential than it is necessarily about ascension. You know what I mean? Like we all have the capacity to reach higher levels of awareness through our DNA, and that's sort of anchor point for our an anchor point for our silver cord, if you will. And so, in that respect, if you had a wider bandwidth, yeah, I can imagine you could be doing some wild stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you'd be doing better or worse or good stuff or more good stuff. You know what I mean? You'd just be doing more stuff. But like, yeah, again, subjective. So it is what it is. Like if you got 12 strands, 24 strands, and you're a jerk either way, like that's not cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's such a good. You're a super jerk then? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Darn
exactly. Yeah.
it.
What level are we talking about here? Thanos jerk? Are you know?
There's probably a few of those out there. There's got to be at least a couple.
Yeah, but could it be something that enables us to have a higher level of connectivity on a more consistent basis? Yeah, something like that I could see happening. But DNA to me is more about the information storage and expression than it is necessarily about moments of perception, if that makes sense. Because to
So
me,
it's
moments of perception would be more based in your sort of microtubules and the rhythms that we talked about before. The blinking of consciousness becomes, I think, more based in those deeper structures with quantum information fields. And the DNA winds up being the spot where it gets transduced into the biophotonic, solitonic information that moves forward and informs your physical stuff, your perception, etc. So if that slight differentiation makes sense, that would be helpful to.
no, it does. I think it does. Like it wouldn't. It's kind of the after. It could spike up to friggin' 99 strands and then back down to 24. It's still relevant. And the test result is after you're not getting the readout until after whatever happens anyway.
Yeah, well, and also like, if you have 24 strands of DNA, you're probably still physical because you have DNA, So like, do you really need that? The higher dimensional beings have, fractal DNA. Our DNA is already fractal, but like that's what I mean. Like it's just packing more information. It's nesting more information waveguides to be able to inhabit together. Like we said, those separate information fields of your organs or your chakras all actually are part of one system, but they're separate. They have boundary conditions. So like being able to blend and function those boundary conditions appropriately in a wider system could probably be enabled by wider DNA. And so like what would that enable to be? Would you be, a chimera? I don't know. That'd be kind of cool. Like, are we already a chimera? Probably. Could we clean things up from an expression standpoint from DNA and get to a 24 strand situation? I think that the three that we're working on now, and again, even that statement is kind of controversial because most people would say two, but it's doing pretty well for us. So, like, you know, if we can do this much with what we got, who knows what we could do with 24? But like I said, I think it also becomes back down to that subjective thing.
I would agree, and or like just as another option for just a postulate of what it could be. Like, all right, we're both to whatever 24th act is active. Like we have a server in the ether. Like, oh, cool. Here's a paper. Like bloop, and then you're like, you just get like a random like little E thing that pops up, and you're like, oh shit, Evan sent me a paper. You're like, no, nothing tech or anything. You're like, oh crap, that's a sweet paper. Oh, I'm gonna write him back. You're like, think up instantly. I'm like, oh, Damon answered me. Oh shit, that's awesome. Like, no anything, but like all outside of meat space wherever we are right now.
Yeah, sure. That's what I mean. Like in terms of the wider bandwidth, enabling some of that higher quantum connection stuff, like what we think of as psi, telekinesis, telepathy, that kind of stuff, would be maybe more enabled. But again, it's like, then what do you do with it? You know, that's always the question I come back to. Like, okay, what do we do with it then? But is it possible? Sure. I guess we'll find out if we wind up, cranking up some ascension vibes here soon.
Oh gosh, right. Well, that was somebody's point to whatever, if whatever happens and across the board, like everybody's got to tune into team A or team B, and then we're boned. And then like, well, not really. If it was either one of those, and then it was everybody was at that whatever level of you couldn't lie anymore. You knew what everybody was thinking, then I'm cool with that. I mean, sometimes I think jerk thoughts like, golly, that guy cut me off. What a dink, or like worse, maybe sometimes, but I'm not hiding anything dirtbaggy. Like, cool, bring it on. Like, that's like, again, like the biofield openness to me of like, no, the gosh, we can't have that. Like, what if everybody had to be super honest all the time? Ooh, no way. Like, wait, something's up with that guy. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah, sometimes I almost like invert that idea and think that 3D linear sort of blinder land is meant to allow for the chaos of not knowing, the chaos of being able to, I don't want to say lie, but like to not see things the same way or to sort of mislead. It's like you have to always be on your toes and it makes you reflect back onto yourself. But it's also, it's another part of this process that we're, you know, here for whatever reason. So, yeah.
I
Uh,
totally agree.
yeah, I just like playing with that metaphysical side of things where it's like, but is that really like a bad, like, how come we can lie, cheat, steal, rob? Like, is that a spiritual thing? Like, no, it doesn't vibe with the way I am or the way I see things. However, I see why you would want to have that if you were, an all seeing, all being, unified field of consciousness that wants to have some experience. You want to come and compress yourself into something that has fun, that has the opportunity to then, create, like Terence McKenna said, like the universe is striving for novelty. It wants something fresh and new. And the best way to do it is to create chaos and just let it simmer, and allow for, and I don't mean chaos, like I said, again, in an evil way, but just create opportunity from that chaos. Because if everything is not random or stochastic, then at a certain point it's totally predictive. That's not what the universe wants to do. It's balancing itself between a stable predictive state and an unstable symmetry breaking exploratory state. So like all of this stuff has a purpose, it has a point. So the best we use it and align ourselves with the principles, I think the better our personal experiences and the people around us hopefully also resonate with higher vibes when we do and spread that stuff up. But yeah, it's all just potential, man. That's what's so weird about it. It's like it's just is ultimate potential.
Dude, to even be able to dive into this stuff, man, is like, it really gets me. Like, my grasp of it is obviously way different than yours, but like, just to even have a grasp on this stuff, like, oh cool, if technically if I do that and that, then this should happen with the lasers. Like, or maybe something happened, maybe it won't. I don't expect shit. And like,
Mhm.
oh crap, like, I'll tell you guys about it, and then like and then uh, something goes on with you, and you're like, oh, this experience went on with this thing. Like, to have a community where people are open to it is just it's super helpful. A and B, like the learning part of it, I enjoy quite a bit. Like, if you would have told me a decade ago, like, oh, reading super hard science stuff is going to be like your fun passion, and I'm like, blow it out your ass, it is. So,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, my wife was picking on me, man. We were at a show a couple nights ago, and during the set break, I was finishing reading a paper, and she looks at me, she's like, "You're a dork." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, fine, you got me." Like, sorry, I'm reading about squeezed lead experiments. Like, excuse me, you know.
oh, I was reading one of the ones that you posted on lunch break, and I'm like, somebody came over to talk to me, and I was actually like, God damn it, I'm right in the middle of something important. And then I like caught myself and I laughed, and I'm like, yeah, that, hey, I'm like, I'll remember that later. Like, this paper is important, damn it. Like,
Yeah, but I think that also like those sparks that make us like what makes it interesting is going to be subjective for all of us. But when you find that spark, you follow it and you honor it and you sort of, encourage it to grow into a flame if you can. And I find that our community is a bunch of people who have through a tons of different walks of life, tons of different specialties, have come to find themselves together because of a shared spark. And it's all sort of wound to a place where we're like talking to each other about our experience with stuff. And we're like, oh, wow, it's very similar to yours. And it's very similar to yours. And then, somebody like Dave or GW or Michael Perone or any of these guys that pop on and explain things in a way that's totally different than what I would ever think about, but still, makes complete sense. Well, maybe not complete, but makes sense eventually in a way that's like, oh, it snaps together, because again, this is the beautiful thing about the unified field type of approach is that you recognize every approach is going to wind up at the same foundation. It's just a matter of perspective and sort of principle at that point of how you approach it, how you recognize, and how you use it.
I would totally agree with that. And like another one that sticks out, Jeremiah was pretty, he's got his own unique nail down on it. But the point that really stuck with me from Sir Dave is the learn at your own path method. Like, it's not like, hey, it's not important that I'm not going to get out there and tell everybody to try to do whatever with lasers. Like, and you're not going to get out there and ever say the only way anybody's going to learn this shit is if they buy a Theraphly and do it like this. Like,
Mhm.
but both of us are like, hey, like this worked for fucking me. Like, I'm grateful as fuck for this. But oh, I don't know if I should swear, but oh well, too late. I might have a
That's
few
true.
times
Yeah,
already.
I've already done it a few times.
Totally unaware,
Yeah.
totally unaware. But like, oh, this worked for me. Sweet. I really enjoy lasers for whatever reason. I figured it would be the safest, and I might have been mistaken, but cool. Like, you're like, oh, I'll try Theraphly. Like, this might work out, might not. This is really cool. And then boom, 2 decades down the line, you're like, this is legit as fuck, and I'm definitely gonna stick to it. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting thing how I think that also we're at a time in sort of humanity's journey where I think people are coming together in this sense. Like I see more and more people who are at least open to allowing the conversation, and that's where it's got to start. And to your point too, like this group, me and you having conversations like this has been awesome. And the Dave's group, GW's group, and all the people out there that I've had conversations with, like you, it's just, Brandon's a great guy. Ani, these guys are awesome. And
fuck yeah.
in opening up people's lexicon and their ability to surf some of these ways without just automatically going, nah, because they find something that grounds to truth in themselves, and then they can grow that seed into whatever, direction that they're trying to aim their, plants towards the sun. So, yeah, it's a groovy process, man. And I appreciate it.
Dude, me too. Oh, you do have an open invite to the frequency theorist too, if you ever have the availability on one of the times that we're ripping it up as well.
Yeah, right, man. I appreciate that. And
Oh, hell yeah, no pressure,
yeah, if you shoot
obviously.
me if you shoot me the Zooms, I think they've mostly been on Sundays, which tend to be a little tough.
I think, yeah, usually I think the next one actually might be a schedule war too, but I'm not sure for the AI one.
You know me, man. I'm always down to talk. I don't know if I
Oh
make any sense when I do it, but I'm trying.
God, no, eloquent as hell, man. Eloquent as hell. I'm grateful for jumping in the I was looking at the date for salt the salt paper that I did for when we first jumped in, and it was 2023, so or two of 2023, so it's been at least 2 years,
Yep.
prob- probably three,
Yeah,
closer.
closing in. Yeah, 2.5 at least. Yeah. I know it's been a heck of a ride because I think even before, it was probably 6 or 7 months before that I had signed up for Dave's Patreon before I even started Salt. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you were there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was there too. Yeah, some of the.
Yeah, you're an OG.
Oh hell yeah! And again, but more gratitude goes up the chain to those guys as well for sure. But
Yeah,
I definitely don't want to take. Speaking of, I don't want to take up your whole evening, man. I'm grateful as hell for the hang and the chop up, dude. And absolutely look forward to doing it again. I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to drop or promote.
No, man, I just want to promote peace and love, peace and love, peace and love.
Hell yeah, I'm with I'm with that. I can get behind that 1,000%.
Oh yeah. Channel my Ringo Starr here. Peace and love.
Peace and love, world peace.
Yeah. World peace.
I'm gonna hit stop on the recording hopefully and not have it vanish this time. Let's see.